What is going on, you guys? My name is CodyT503 and this is the Steam Podcast. Coming to you guys on April 21st, 2024 for episode 92, where today we actually have a very special guest. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe button, ring that notification bell so you guys get notified whenever I upload content. Make sure to go and follow me on social media at CodyT503. That's Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Let's get right into this. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is an absolute pleasure to bring to you guys Jesse FARRAR.
Hey, interesting podcast. Good to see y'all. What's up, Cody?
Oh man, it is an absolute pleasure for you to actually sit down with me. Thank you
man,
so very much.
Thank you very much. It was an absolute pleasure to hear from you. I'm glad we were able to make it work. So
that is so awesome. Well, all right. Well, before we actually really get into everything, maybe if you can introduce your name, where you're from, and maybe how long you've been in music.
Yeah, so my name's Jesse Kalen FARRAR, born out of way of Belleville, Illinois, which is a blue-collar suburb of St. Louis, Missouri. And I come from a long line of musicians and artists and storytellers, and I'm 35 years young, which, feeling older by the day. And but yeah, that's where I'm. I was from a band called Old Salt Union, and I'm a lifelong musician. Started playing when I was very young, and still playing to this day. So
that is so awesome. So before we actually get into when you started playing, and then maybe Old Salt Union, so you just said that you came from a branch of musicians. So what exactly was that branch of musicians in which you have in your family?
So I guess the best way I could put it was like an order of operations of the way I experienced it, which was obviously my father, who was a fantastic songwriter. He's played in a lot of bands from One Fell Swoop to the Colonel Ford to the Cold Jimmies. He's been playing his whole life, bluegrass player mostly. And then probably the second experience would be my grandfather, Pop, who was a merchant Marine. And he wasn't a musician until the last couple of years of his life. And he played the accordion and sang all these old Steamboat songs. And he would pick me up from school every day, and he would force me to play because I was kind of didn't want to do that, And but he would make me do it, and I'd play the drums and I'd play the whatever. And then my uncle Jay FARRAR, of course, who was from a band called Uncle Tupelo. And Sunvolt, and actually Sunvolt's first record, Trace, is as instrumental as anything, as far as me being a songwriter. And so those three events, and then also all my uncles play. My mom strums a couple chords, and so yeah, it's just I didn't really have much of a fighting chance, actually.
Yeah. So before we actually again get into what I want to get into next, is that maybe something that you majority could actually see through that lineage with your family, where maybe you guys kind of have that kind of same style as far as music goes?
Yeah, well, like I kind of said in the intro there, it's kind of the blue collar factory working, music that Americana leads itself to. And I think we all kind of have that in us somewhere. We've been broke for a lot of our lives. You get the farm towns of Columbia and Millstadt and all this, but also you get the kind of the urban, St. Louis and East St. Louis, and so there's this weird mix of all those things that kind of combine, and I think regardless of who you are, I think that is going to be instilled in you a little bit if you're from this area,
Yeah. So being from that whole area, is there any other genres that are majorly popular, or is that more of a specific community that really likes to indulge in that specific type of music?
It's just kind of like what I was saying with the juxtaposition of the farm towns and then East St. Louis or St. Louis. Both of those things shine. So you have artists like Nelly and Raw Reese and Jenna and all these people that kind of came up, and then you also have these great artists like Pokey LaFarge and Old Salt Union and Uncle Tupelo. So there's the best of both worlds, and I'd like to think that we kind of bridge the gap a little bit. certainly not as much as I probably would have liked to, but yeah, it's interesting. I think music shines through here because we really are a subsidy of New Orleans. You know, the Mississippi River connecting us to New Orleans is very, very true and very, very prevalent. You know, so I don't know. You know, I just is the way it is, and we're just trying to figure out the best we can. So.
Yeah. So like what was like one instrument that like you first started out with that like you really attached to and like you felt a connection with where it was almost really natural for you to pick up that instrument? Like
Yes.
can you actually name that instrument
Oh,
for
for
us?
sure, man. I can pinpoint a lot of music milestones in my life very early on. I'll tell you just to kind of revert to my grandfather Pop, who was one of the most important persons in my whole life. But you know, he always would make me play the Irish drum, and so I'd play the Irish drum, and I didn't really care for all that, and I was kind of rejecting music for the first 9 years of my life. Because it was all around me and everybody played music, but I was just like, nah, I don't want to do that. I want to play hockey. I want to play baseball, you know? And then this is going to sound a little whatever, but the first time that I remember was a song called Around the World by a band called the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And Flea has this solo that goes like this really, and I remember running downstairs, said, Dad, what is that instrument? And he said, dude, that's the bass. That's what I play. Let's talk about it. And so from that Christmas, I got my first bass, and it was off to the races from there. So shout out
That
Flea.
is so that is so awesome.
Yeah, man.
So like one thing that I've noticed whenever you're sitting there performing is that like you're able to not only play the bass, but you're also able to sing and then rock out at like the
Sure.
same time. So
Yeah.
like at what point was it during your whole musical career in which you kind of found out that not only could you play an instrument, but you could also sing along with it at the same time?
Well, that is that is a tough thing to do for a lot of people. For me, I didn't really, you know, as soon as I was able to play an instrument, I was writing, and in my opinion, like I thought everybody's dad could play and sing music, you know. So it's just like I didn't, you know, I was like, well, that's the way that it is. So I learned pretty early on, and I've actually ran across people that I've done lessons with or done this to like, you know, as you get older, it gets tough to like, you know, you got to coordinate this with this and this and this. Uh, but for me, it was kind of a second nature thing, and I know that's not a cool answer, but I, you know, just kind of the way that it was a little bit. So
Yeah. Yeah, well, one thing I've kind of noticed about that, just because like I am like a drummer, and you know I'll sit there
sure.
and be sitting there tapping, and I'll be able to like sing like Pantera as I'm just
Yeah.
tapping along, you know, and it's almost like once you learn this basic repetition, you
Sure.
know, like counting
Well,
to fours
that's it.
and
That's it.
whatnot. Yeah,
You almost quit. Like once you get this down, that's a now you're focused on your voice. Now you're focused on this. This is mechanical, right? So,
yeah.
and that's kind of the way it is with guitar. It's like once you get enough of this, you're okay, you know. And then they just start focusing on how bad you are as a singer. Not you, I mean me.
No, like that was actually like a perfect segue because I actually wanted to actually talk to you about your voice and like so like did you take choir growing up?
Did I take what?
Choir?
I think so. No formal training. If that's what the question's, no formal training. Um, when I started, so there's a couple different ways I could take this, I guess. I never thought of myself as a great singer, and there was a couple artists that I had heard where I was like, "Oh, I want to sound like that," and I kind of chased that. One of them being a fellow by the name of Justin Ozuka, who was like kind of like this pop folk guy that happened in the early 2000s, and I said, "I want to sound like him." And so I would sing like him every day, and I would just try and try and try. And obviously, he still blows me out of the water, but yeah, no real formal training. You know, I think in a lot of ways, the passion that comes from just whatever your voice sounds like when you give it from your soul is what's important, you know? So, I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, no choir. I think I was in choir one time in the 6th grade, but I don't think I excelled by any means.
No, so like what was your like first reaction when somebody actually had came to you and was like, "No, dude, like you do actually have like a really good drawling voice. Like
Dude,
you
it's
could
funny. It's funny.
actually."
I remember that too. Is people would say that I was in a punk rock band when I was, from 10 to 15 called Bottomless Pit. um, but I remember all through high school, I kind of hid the fact that I could play music. I was kind of living this double life of I was in jazz band and all this stuff. Then I was also kind of this, party, I wanted to be popular and all this stuff. And so it was always like a source of conflict for me. And I remember there was a certain party my senior year where somebody handed me a guitar, and like all my friends were like, "Damn, we didn't know you could do that." Like, and I was like, "Oh wait, this is something different." Like this is something different. And I remember the exact party. I remember exactly where I was, and that kind of changed everything. And to this day, I don't necessarily. I'm not great. I have an individual voice, and I think anybody who has an individual voice should use it. But yeah, I do remember the point where I'm like, oh, so this is kind of cool, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So before we actually like start to get into Old Salt Union, when did everything start to form as a unit? Like
With
can
that
you
band.
kind of like yeah, like can you like walk us through the beginning a little bit?
Yeah. So first and foremost, the one of the most important people of my life, as far as like musical influential, like is like people who are feeding me music. A lot of people have older brothers who are like, oh, you got to listen to this. Oh, you got to listen to that. I didn't have any older brothers. I had one older sister, and that was it. And growing up. So my cousin Dustin Icecamp was the holy grail of what is cool, And so I remember like my first couple records when I was 6, 7 years old. I had Green Day's Dookie, Offspring Smash. I had Blues Travelers 4, and I had Nevermind by Nirvana. And he would play these songs all the time or these records all the time. And I was like begging my mom, like, we have to get these. So I say all that to say this. Me and Dustin was the original guitar player for Old Salt Union. So when we finally came around to making a band, I just dropped out of college, jazz college. I was a jazz performance major, and I was also a big F up. I don't. Are we allowed to cuss on here?
Of course.
Oh, I was a huge fuck up. And so I dropped out of jazz college, and I was kind of like doing hip hop. I was doing like these kind of weird things. And Dustin had called me. He said, "Hey, we want to do this little bluegrass thing. Are you available?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got nothing. I literally nothing else going." And so we played one show, and that's when Dustin and I met Ryan Murphy, and that's when I met Justin Wallace, and that's when I met John Brighton. And that was the final piece to Old Salt Union. And as some YouTube comments and Instagram comments would say, that's when everything kind of changed. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so like when you were actually going throughout that whole process of meeting all of these people and they have these abilities on these instruments, how did it feel kind of maybe sitting in that room where everybody was like, man, like if we all connected, like we could
Well,
really do something. Can you kind of like walk us through that
well, what's funny
conversation?
is yeah. What's funny is I felt like a conductor when I first joined the band because Ryan Murphy had just started picking up the banjo. Justin Walls had just started playing the mandolin. Other than that, like, the other guys were okay. So I felt like, okay, I'm collegiately trained. I'm this, I'm that, a lot of ego probably, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna make this thing. And so very early on, I wrote a lot of the early banjo parts, and Justin Wallace is such a good name songwriter that me and him bounced off each other a lot, and which kind of created the sound a little bit. But yeah, the first couple years, and we saw a lot of success. Sorry, that's our dog.
No, it's good.
Blue, say hi. Blue, hey, hi. um, but yeah, like we won this one competition really early on, and for the Wakarusa Festival, and I was like, oh, so this could actually be something, and oh, don't do it, Tim. Oh, go ahead. So yeah, it's all trial and error, and it's all whatever. Like at the time, it felt like it was all meant to be. I'm like, of course, me and my cousin are getting back together. Of course, like blah blah blah. Like it just felt like it was making sense. And I'm not a big signs guy, but it felt that way at the time.
That is really, really cool. Well, there are probably like 4 songs that I want to bring up to you
Sure.
in this podcast. Maybe you can explain on them. But before I get into that, there are a couple of questions that I have from like my sister. She wants to ask you a question.
Sure.
And one interesting thing that I had actually learned was referee Brad Lee here in the Pacific Northwest. He actually went to high school with you. And
Are you talking about Bradley Meredith?
I don't know his last name, but all I know is that you guys went to high school together, and
I know Brad.
You just wanted to just say like, "What's up?"
First off, if we're talking about the same guy, Brad's amazing, and he was he a musician?
I'm not sure. I just had him on my podcast just talking about pro wrestling.
Oh, okay,
but,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, either way, tell him I said hi. Yeah, if it's the guy I'm thinking of, yeah, I'm a big fan, and I have liked him a lot over the years. So
that is awesome. I will definitely have to clip this out and send it to him.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Yeah. So let's kind of start to talk about This Is Where I Stand, and then I'll ask you my sister's question.
Sure.
So like you guys are actually like standing on top of like a rooftop, sitting there and just like playing everything, and then that's when your cousin is actually playing the acoustic.
Mm-hmm.
So like, how did you guys think that would be the most perfect environment to express the lyrics in which you guys are actually talking about?
You know what? It was just like one of those things where opportunity. First off, I don't know if it's perfect for the thing, but it was our first West Coast tour, and we had gone down for these things called the Folk Alliance Awards, and we won a couple awards really early on. And you know how much shit I got for wearing that Sigma Kappa cutoff shirt? Like, if you look through the comments, people hate me. They hate me so much. They hate me so much. But I will tell you a behind the scenes fact on that is that we'd all decided we were going to wear like funny shirts. So Ryan was wearing a banana shirt. Justin was wearing this girl skiing shirt. I was wearing the Sigma Kappa shirt. John was wearing a Tyrannosaurus shirt. So what happened is Dustin took his shirt off because it was hot. And so now he was wearing a white shirt. And then Ryan took off his shirt. So all of a sudden it was just me wearing this stupid sorority shirt. And like people hated it. And they hated it. They're like, dude, the singer doesn't really fit in. I know. I don't fit in because everybody's missing what's going on. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so like when you're actually like that high up on a building, and then you're kind of maybe looking out into the horizon, and kind of like every time it's kind of like a really nice view. Does that ever make you feel more comfortable whenever you're sitting there performing?
Yeah. So in that particular instance, I don't know. I don't think I ever feel totally comfortable performing. I feel like I'm always kind of fighting something, and I think that would probably be hard to believe for people watching. Yeah, I never feel comfortable, but yeah, something like that when it's a video shoot, and nobody's there to kind of judge you as you're doing it. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever.
Yeah. So like whenever you like, because we had kind of like just touched on like your family being somewhat of like a really big inspiration for you. So like, do you ever have like any other inspirations that you really like to draw whenever you are up on stage, or maybe you're like writing music or the flow of your music?
Yeah, it's weird. So I'm a big musical moment guy. I'm not. I've found over the years that I'm never interested in an artist and everything that they do. I'm interested in a certain moment. If it makes me feel something, I appreciate that. So like, it- without sounding too whatever, but like John Mayer has a couple really good musical moments. But I would never say that I'm like a huge John Mayer fan. But I would say that he has some really good moments that I'm attached to, and it's the same with anybody. And I don't think that necessarily celebrities should be idolized like that. I think that, if there's something musical or something that moves you, that's a specific moment. But um, don't just idolize every, I don't know if there's ever been an artist where I like love their entire catalog or love their entire, you know what I mean? Um, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I love music. I love the creation of music, and I love people that uh, push the envelope as far as doing it. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but however, I will say Jay Farrar is one of my favorite artists of all time, and I will say Dave Farrar is one of my favorite artists of all time. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So like here's a question before I ask you my sister's question.
sure, sure.
Um have you ever like maybe encountered somebody in which you like really looked up to and then maybe they kind of like disappointed you? Because I feel like that's something that people would typically say is like don't meet your
Hero,
biggest idol
right,
because
right,
they'll yeah, like
right.
have you ever experienced that?
You know what? I understand the duality of man.
Mm,
I'm not great. I've done some great things in life. I've done some shitty things in life. I don't ever pinpoint anybody on an interaction. I don't. I really don't. I've met some celebrities, some people I've really looked up to, and that technically have let me down. But also, it's just like, well, that person also saved my life at some point. You know, like
yeah.
that's so. I understand the duality of man, and I'll never hold anybody accountable for a 1 point interaction. So yeah, no,
Yeah. Very, very interesting. Well, one thing my
oh
sister actually wanted to. You good?
yeah. Sorry, there's a what does it say?
I was gonna say
Not restart. No, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, it's good. So my sister wanted to ask you like so like because she had actually seen you with me for like the first time when you guys were with Yonder Mountain String Band,
Yeah.
and she was actually wondering like what song like do you mostly like to perform that you feel like mostly draws the crowd in whenever you guys actually perform it.
Oh, so that yeah. That's a great question. So obviously where I stand was one that we can win a crowd back, right? Sometimes when you're losing a crowd, you're like, oh shit, like what can we do? Uh, where I stand, Tuscaloosa was always one. Call Me Al was a good one. Justin sang that. Um, but as far as like the honor tours, we were doing Jake Joloff, who was playing mandolin with Yonder at the time. We were doing Layla by Derek and the Dominoes, Eric Clapton. And that was always the one that we were able to reel it back in. Like if the crowd wasn't feeling a song, we'd be like, all right, time for Layla. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah. So but as an artist, you do have to be aware of those little things. Like um I can feel like we're losing them. Okay, two people went to go get a drink over there. We got to reel it back in. So
Oh, that is awesome.
hell yeah.
Well, what another song that I wanted to ask you about is Redwood. So,
Yeah.
like, how was it like you guys actually taking that trip to the Redwood Forest and actually wanting to perform? Can you kind of walk us through the actual travel or maybe getting there and what you guys
Actually,
experienced?
there's a really good story with that particular performance on YouTube with Redwood. Um, so our bus broke down. So at first we had a a shuttle bus, like an airport shuttle bus, and we called her Rosemary. And she was our pride and joy. And then we were heading out to Bozeman, Montana, and she broke down half the way. And so halfway through, we bought a brand new RV. Thanks to all of our parents and like a GoFundMe and all this stuff. Like we got this 27-foot RV, and we drove straight from St. Louis to Bozeman, Montana. It's like 36 hours or whatever it was, and to play a show, and that led us down to the Redwood show. And so all of a sudden we felt free, and here I am. God, yeah, that whole tour will forever be important to me. I mean, forever, because we were free, and then we went to the Redwood Forest, and all of a sudden we had a song about Redwood, and then we did it live in the forest, and it was so good. It was so good. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, yeah, absolutely. So like, who actually came up with like the lyrics to Redwood? Because
that's all
like
Justin Wallace. That's all Justin Wallace. Justin Wallace is one of the best songwriters I've ever met, and I'm not saying that in any type of sideways way. Like, he has a way of putting together real feelings and real words that completes. I don't know. He's so good, and in a lot of ways, I envy him in a lot of ways. So, yeah, it's Justin Wallace. All Justin Wallace.
yeah, yeah. That is definitely one song that like always like hits home, and like another song that like I wanted to ask you about is Madam Plum. Because I feel like every dude has probably dated a girl at some point that is a Madam Plum. So who came up with that whole song?
So that was me. I wrote that song in my basement. I probably can't say the truth. No, and this is nothing weird. It's just so the inspiration of it came from a specific situation that I was going through, which was actually not formidable through the song. It's not exactly the same, but I took the idea of a feeling that I had and wrote that song. And also at the same time, I was really into Pokey Lafarge, and so he was doing these weird, like 7 chords and all this weird stuff. And we'd play with him a couple times, and I kind of wanted to write a song like that where it's like very storytelling, rather than emotion telling, which is what I'm kind of more so good at. I'm talking about feelings and all this. I'd rather tell a story. And so yeah, that's how that song came about. So
That is really really interesting.
yeah.
Well, one thing that my mom actually wanted for me to ask you is like, how does it feel to know that like even when you were back in Old Salt Union or maybe where you perform, just you as a person, you're gonna have those fans that would actually travel to
Oh
go
yeah.
and see you. Like how we had gone down to San Francisco and
Sure.
she had gone to St. Louis and whatnot. Like, how does it feel to have like fans actually travel to see you?
And I don't want to get a whole lot into it, but as a dude who battles mental, like I don't deserve it. And I always felt like we didn't deserve it. We're so appreciative and so humbled to anybody that gives a shit about us at all. And like I'm not joking. Like, yeah. Oftentimes, I couldn't even articulate into words like how, I don't know. It's amazing. The fact that people gave a shit about us at all is incredible, and we're so thankful. So yeah.
Yeah, that is really really awesome. Well, one of the last songs that I wanted to talk to you about that I heard that like you were the one to kind of write is Tuscaloosa.
Mhm.
So, what were you actually thinking when you were actually writing that song?
So I kind of tell a bastardized version of it on stage when we used to play it. So we were in Birmingham, Alabama, which throws people off because the song's called Tuscaloosa. uh, but we were in Birmingham, Alabama, at this place called the Nick, and it was a punk rock bar. And so our booking agent at the time was really good booking agent in like the 80s and 90s. And so he would book us all these clubs that long past their day, like nobody went there anymore, and so we played this place called Nick, and it was a punk rock bar, and like 3 people showed up, and they hated our guts, dude. Like they hated us. They hated everything about us. And so the next morning we woke up, we drove to Tuscaloosa, and we used to do this thing where before the maids could clean the rooms, we would sneak in and take a shower real quick for like people clocking out. And so while we were doing that, I wrote that in Tuscaloosa rather than Birmingham, it fit better in the syllable whatever. So yeah, so I ended up writing that song that day in the parking lot of a shitty hotel.
So like, what did you mean by like catch your train and I'll just stay until dawn?
Yeah, get out of here. Everybody can get out of here. I gotta stay here. You know what I mean? Like, the show, you catch your train, get the hell out of here because I'm staying. Yeah, that's about it.
That is so awesome.
Oh, yeah,
so like one thing that like I kind of noticed like whenever you are like able to like play bass is then you kind of like sit there and you like rock out to it.
Yeah.
And like it's just like it's so weird in a sense and in a good way to actually see it where like a bluegrass player can be sitting there kind of rocking out just like anybody else.
Typically bluegrass bass players are tucked in the back corner. And like they're just boom, 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 boom. And I just wasn't built that way, So you know what? Actually, a funny story is there's a couple times, which is embarrassing to admit. I'd be getting down and I would headbutt my bass. For a couple times, I had a black eye. It was like super big. Like the next day, it was like, "Did you get beat up?" I'm like, "No, I just headbutted my bass." Yeah. So.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah, man.
So, before we actually get into a little bit about your experiences at festivals, I wanted to ask you, so if you were to ever be able to headline a festival, like it was based around your guys' headline, who would you guys want to be your guys' opener in your mind? Like, I think it would be really cool to have, Old Salt Union or maybe any of your future projects, where you're like, these people would be awesome.
Yeah. That's an awesome question. Trampled by Turtles forever. Forever. Dave Simonette's, I've met him a couple times and he was very instrumental in us getting it together. Cadillac Sky, if I know they're broken up, I think they're getting back together, but Cadillac Sky was another big one. And then Jason Isbell, I mean, he's as good as anybody could ever get as far as songwriting is concerned. And I don't know. Maybe nobody would ever come to that festival. I don't know.
Yeah. So like I recently read that like either you had performed recently or you're going to perform with the Way Down Wanderers.
So we just did on Wednesday night, or Thursday night, last Thursday. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was cool because the Way Down Wanderers have always showed us so much love, and we were kind of the first band that brought them to St. Louis, let them open up for us, and all this. And so it was almost like a full circle moment, where it was like, also now I'm opening up for the Way Down Wanderers, and it was cool, man. There was a couple hundred people there, and they did a great show, and I love those guys to death, and yeah, those are my brothers, man. Love the Way Down Wanderers.
Yeah. I think that would definitely be a band in which I could see would really, really bring a major tour with you guys.
Well, dude, they're gonna break. They're gonna, especially with Austin, dude. Like he's a fantastic songwriter. They're gonna break the mainstream at some point. They just haven't found out the right conglomeration of whatever it is. And I was telling them this that night after we got done playing with them. Hi, Dot. Hey, Linda. Sorry, I saw you. But yeah, they're great. They're great, and they have unlimited potential. Like they really do. And I wish them the best. I love those guys. I've known them for 15 years at this point. So
yeah. So like at what point was it during your guys' whole formation where you guys really got like a major booking? And like how did it feel for you guys as a group when everything was announced like, hey, like this is something that we're actually going to be able to go and do? Like what was running through everybody's mind at that time?
I'll tell you one of the craziest stories in that regard is we were playing Atlanta, Georgia, at Smith's Old Bar. And We started playing, and there was like literally 3 people there. And we were all just bummed. We'd been on the road for like a month and a half. We were so bummed. It's like, this shit sucks, dude. Like, should we even be doing this? And so one of the 3 people there was one of the, not CEOs, but like a corporate executive of Coca-Cola. And so the next day we played to, these 3 people. We're like, dude, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Like, what the fuck's going on? Like, blah, blah, blah. We got a message that said, hey, I'm so-and-so at Coca-Cola. We want you to play the Daytona 500 right before Luke Bryan. And it said, is there any way you can get down there, whatever the date was, blah, blah. Like, well, we have a gig in Kansas City the night before, but that's a 30-hour drive. Yeah, we can probably fucking make it work. And we did it. And so like that specific thing was like, you never know who's there. And you just got to play the best you can at all times. Like, I don't know. That was like the first show where I was like, oh shit. Like, and then we played the Daytona 500 in front of fucking 700 people, and yeah, it was very, very bizarre. This was very early on. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know when I had first initially saw you, you were with Yonder Mountain String Band, and it was with my sister. And for some reason, both of us just felt like you guys just like absolutely like smacked him like off the stage. Like you guys were so good that like.
I don't like that because they're the predecessors,
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. It was the same thing that happened with like Billy Strings and
Oh. Oh no. Hold on 1 second. No. Come on. No. Oh, come on.
Hey, I'm back.
All right.
Sorry about that. I pulled the power cord off and it shut off on me. I apologize.
Oh no, dude, you're all good. You're all good.
Can you see me?
No, not yet, but I can hear you.
That's all right. Yeah, let's just we're good. We're good.
Okay, coolio.
Yeah, getting back to the honor stuff, like that was like one of the bigger parts of our career, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah, so like how is it whenever you guys are sitting there and kind of coordinating with each other? Like, do you guys ever kind of get to a point to where you guys get like writer's block, like maybe as a
oh,
person or as a group?
100%. Yeah. So again, without getting too much into like mental health and all that, but you know, as a man depressive, like I go through a lot of stuff, and it's when I get on my upswings that I'm like, okay, now I can focus on all the other stuff. You know what I mean? Um, but the best part of being about in a band, especially with Justin Wallace, is he'll pick up the slack when I'm slacking, then I'll pick up the slack when he's slacking, and so it was a really symbiotic relationship, man.
Yeah. Yeah. That is really, really interesting.
Yeah,
Well, for the final song that I want to get into with you is "Tell Me So" by Bobby Osborne,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you guys were actually kind of doing like actually performing the song as he was driving, as you were driving. You guys were bouncing back and forth, like in the video. So it's like at what point was it that you guys not only came up with the idea, but maybe got permission from him to be able to do a cover and actually film it?
Okay, so first off, that's not a cover. So him and Justin actually wrote that song together.
Oh,
Uh, yes, that's a completely original song. Um, and you know, he was 88 years old when we wrote that song. And he was a part of Compass Records, which we had just signed to at the time. Um, and so, actually, a funny story about the video in particular is we were driving down. We had to shoot a video for it, and we got locked in on I think it was 24 or whatever going down to Nashville, and like locked traffic, like nobody's moving anywhere. And so we pulled our instruments out and we performed on the side of the highway. There's a video of it somewhere, but and we just played it. So Bobby had to shoot his stuff apart from us. And yeah, I don't know. Bobby's just one of the best things that ever existed to any type of music, much less bluegrass. And God rest his soul. And we're so grateful that to be able to have him on a song with us, man.
yeah. Yeah. I know when I was kind of sending you the discussion list, I wanted to ask you about where were you and what were you doing when you had actually heard that he had passed away?
Yeah, that was tough. You know, there's two musicians in my life. You hear Prince dies, you hear Michael Jackson dies, you hear all this, all these celebrities die. Two musicians really, really messed me up, and Bobby Osborne was one, and Jeff Austin was the other one. And the reason Jeff Austin was one is because we were on tour with him, when it happened. So, and me and Jeff had a long talk one night. We were crying to each other and doing all this stuff. And then 1 week later, he was gone. Um, with Bobby, I was okay with Bobby because he lived a long life. He did what he had to do. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, do you feel like it's really, really cool that maybe your guys' project was maybe one of his last projects before he actually
Oh, for
passed
sure,
away?
dude. And you know what? Like, I we don't want to exploit that. Like, even when he passed, like, I felt weird about even posting our song, being like, "Man, we love Bobby." It just felt weird because, like, that's not what we were doing. That's not why we cared about it. That's not like, we spent a lot of time with him in the studio writing the song and doing the song.
Mm,
Um, yeah. It messes me up a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. Yeah, that is really, really interesting. So like
But he's the man, dude. He's the man. He's like, dude, and like the coolest 88-year-old you could ever meet. Like, just the coolest dude, man. Just the coolest dude.
Oh, that is so awesome.
Yeah, man.
So, like, let's kind of like start to talk about like maybe like traveling on the road. Like, do you have any major road experiences that you really, really enjoyed that maybe you can share with us?
Man, this would be another podcast if we had to do that. Yeah, I mean, listen, the road was my greatest success and also my biggest nemesis at the same time. Um, I hated being on the road, but also some of my favorite memories are from the road, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like I'm not in any position to tell somebody to do it or not to do it or whatever, but yeah, the road is awesome and the road sucks, and I'll tell you, both of those things are true.
Yeah. So like, how many times do you guys think that like your cars actually broke down as you guys were going
Oh
through like
my
recording?
god, bro! Oh my god. Uh, Dude, the first couple tours, man, we were breaking down every tour. And like, there was this one gig, we were in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and we had to be back in St. Louis for a CD release show. And we were asking the nearest like car rental place, like, what's the biggest car you got? Because we have an upright bass, we have all these instruments, bass amp, all this stuff. Like, well, we got a RAV4. And I'm not familiar if you're familiar with RAV4, but it's basically like a sedan. It's a super small car. So we packed all of our shit in there and drove 12 hours all the way home in this racked up RAV4. Yeah, there's a million times where things didn't go well. So
Oh, that is so funny. So,
yeah,
what was like one of the best concerts that you had ever been to, and then maybe what was one of the worst concerts that you have ever been to, where like it was just a real struggle,
as a viewer,
as a musician?
oh, like us playing.
Yeah.
Um, so the best I'd probably say is we played the Fresh Grass Festival in Northampton, Massachusetts, and that's where we got signed by Compass Records. And there was something about it. There was magic in the air, and we were playing so good, and the crowd was going crazy. And we went out in the crowd. That will probably remain one of my favorite of all time. I would say the worst would be the 504 in Iowa City, Iowa. Where we're playing for some stew. I guess they're paying us in stew. I don't know. It gets weird, man. It gets weird. It gets weird out there.
Oh man, that is so awesome.
Yeah,
So
and
if
everywhere in between.
yeah. So like what could you kind of maybe explain to people like what can we expect from the future when it comes to Jesse?
To me personally, well, I got no other um reason to say that I have never wanted to quit playing music. I never wanted to in the first place, and I'm just trying to find the right conglomeration of people and hearts to connect to, and um, so I actually recorded a solo record with Compass Records, uh, and it hasn't been released yet technically, but it was one of the worst times in my life, and I kind of hate the record, but I don't know. I'm not done, man, and also we're not done. I know for sure Justin Walls is not done. I know Dustin Ice Can is not done. We're not closing the door yet.
Yeah. Yeah. So like could we actually expect maybe a little return from Old Salt Union in the future?
Yeah, you know, maybe not in a way that people expect, but I think there'll be a conglomeration of it that will happen. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I play with Dustin all the time. I play with Justin all the time. It's not going to be what people think it's going to be, where it's the same five guys, blah blah blah. Like that probably won't happen, at least in the near future. But um, yeah, we're not done, man. We're a bunch of creative. We're a bunch of artists, and we're just trying to figure out life, man.
Yeah. That is really really awesome. So, as just like my final question before we actually end up cutting everything out, I just want to ask you, what does it feel like for you as a person to be able to not only put like you had kind of said earlier, your mental state, but your emotional state into all of your songs and have it kind of be this therapeutic for
Oh, sure.
like for you. Like what does that mean to you to be able to express yourself within these songs or your
Oh,
performance?
dude, it's everything. If it didn't exist, I wouldn't exist, and I'm dead serious. But I don't want to make it as black and white as that. It's like I'm not always capable of projecting that, you know. So it's like it takes being able to step away from it and then look back. It's all about looking back for me. Like, you know what I mean? I can never write when I'm in the thick of it. Never. I can never write. Like if I'm feeling shitty or if I'm feeling this way, or if I'm feeling that way, I can never write that. But I have to be able to drag myself out of it, and then I can look back, and that's when I write the best shit that I can write. So
Yeah. Well, I apologize. I know I was just going to ask one final question, but I just wanted to just hear
yeah.
your perspective. What would be one piece of advice that you would kind of give to somebody about them living a happy and authentic life? What would you kind of give a piece of advice to them about?
Man, that's a heavy question. Because I haven't quite figured it out yet. You know, I'll say try to be peaceful. Try to understand that everybody's flawed. Nobody's perfect, man. Nobody. Like your greatest heroes are tragically flawed. Um, I don't know, man. I'm kind of trying to figure that out myself. Take the small wins, you know, like take the small little things that happen. Like, oh, this is a cool day. Take that and do with it what you can. So I don't know.
I don't know, dude. That's really really cool. Well, I just want to thank you very very much, man,
Cody,
for
hey,
actually
Cody,
allowing
you're the
me to
shit,
just.
dude. Thank you so much, brother. Cody, you're the shit.
Yeah, man. Thank you for just allowing me to just pick apart your mind for a little
Oh,
bit.
man, I appreciate it, man. You know,
Yeah,
like
it means
when
a
you
lot.
messaged me, I was like, man, like, cause I was telling my wife Jordan, I was like, you know, this stuff used to happen all the time, and now like since Old Saline isn't a thing, like I appreciated you reaching out to me. I'm like, I still feel like I mean something. So I appreciate it, man.
All right, man. Well, I hope you have a very very good night, and I will talk to you a little bit
All
later.
right, Cody, you too, brother. I love you, man. We'll talk soon, all right?
Bye.
All right.
All right, you guys. So that was Interesting's podcast interview with Jesse FARRAR. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe button, ring that notification bell so you guys get notified whenever I upload content. Make sure to go and follow me on social media at CodyT503. That's Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.